All right, so I've been working on taking this Rrobots game, which we did a bunch of fun activities with back when I was more involved in the URUG community, and I extended it so that you can basically control a tank in the game just with UDP signals, basically. So just as a quick demo of that, you can start up a server like this, and it'll tell you where it's starting, and then people can basically clone this little Elixir library, and right out of the bat, if they just run something as simple as this, like just tell me where the server is, what the name of your robot should be, and they can join. And we'll go ahead and have two people join with just kind of the default out of the box. On this one, I'm just giving it a different port since I have multiple running on the same machine. And then on this one, let's actually load. We're just going to imagine that this person came to a meetup and they started working on a totally different implementation of a bot, which we'll look at what that looks like in just a second. But just so we can see a somewhat interesting game. Now, if this person joins, I'll go ahead and find. Here's the little game screen that came up. So you can see it's registering, or it's setting up a game, and the bots are doing whatever it is that they're trying to do. Looks like Aaron is taking the game. And after he wins, then the server will just go ahead and start another game. And essentially, as many people as have registered, however many people are running a little Tanquinho client on their machine, it'll just keep picking as many people as it can to throw into the next game and kind of randomly do that selection. And it watches for things like, if people shut off their machine or stop their client because they're trying to work on a new implementation, that works just fine. And also, whenever they're working on their own code locally, it'll actually hot reload any of their changes. So let's just briefly, let's do this. I'll open up a new tab over here, run over to Tanquinho, and we'll grab that little bot that Aaron is running. And so here's his implementation of his T1000 bot. So essentially implementing a tank just means that when the game starts, you get a little map of some settings about the game, like the game resolution and the size of your tank. And then each tick of the game, you receive a little UDP packet, which we parse and we call this tick function. And in whatever state you return from your init function, starts getting passed in as this second argument, as well as this map again of just like a bunch of little pieces of information like your current, how much health you have left, the heat of your gun, which direction you're facing, where you are in the map, things like that. And so you can see in this case we're using like, hey, have I scanned any robots? In other words, are there any robots directly, more or less directly in front of my robot? If so, I'm basically just going to figure out what their distance is. And then I'm basically building up this little set of actions. And that's just a little struct. And so I can, call turn and tell it how far I want to turn. And over here, I've kind of pulled out depending on if I see someone in front of me. If I don't see someone, then I'm just going to kind of keep turning a little bit to the right. Or clockwise, I should say. And then if I do see someone in front of me, then I actually turn back to the left a little bit. This is a way of kind of like trying to focus on one area that's in front of your robot. Similarly, if I don't see anyone in front of me, I'm using kind of these low power shots so that I can fire kind of rapid fire. But whenever there is someone in front of me, then I use a higher power shot. And anyway, you get the idea. So this is all, just kind of at the end of this thing, I'm just going to return, here's a set of actions that I want my robot to take, and here's an updated state. So if I wanted to kind of track where I believe an enemy is or something like that, I could track that in my state in between each tick. And so let's just go ahead and we're going to add on to the end of this pipeline actions.say yo. Right, and so now my robot should start talking. You can actually see that that message just showed up over here in the game. And if I say something like that instead, so the cool thing here is basically just that we're taking any live updates to this file and we're reloading the module, and then it just is automatically going to be calling that new version of our code in the middle of the game. And so I think this gives participants a pretty fun experience, and hopefully makes it a fairly easy environment for beginners to learn. They can just start implementing just this one function, and they'll be starting off from a really simple definition like this, where at the beginning of the game we just pick a random turning direction and like how much we want to turn in what direction, and then down in each tick we just basically turn that much and then continuously fire. And that's the behavior that you're seeing from these other robots that just are spinning and shooting as they go. And they're not quite as effective as the T1000, but it's an easy place for beginners to start and a fun way just to experiment with programming in Elixir, I think. So hopefully that's a good intro, and then we can figure out if we want to extend this and make it better in some other ways.